Hi, I'm Ruth and welcome to the Flow into Health podcast. What does it mean to flow into health? It means living in sync with the energy around you, things like your menstrual cycle, the moon, and the seasons. It means going with the flow and softening into what you may not like in your life and learning to release resistance. And it means understanding how energy flows in our bodies so we can optimize it and feel our very best. Welcome back, my friends. If you are listening to this when this episode was released, did you know it's Gemini season? Do you know what that means for your energy? And it's not just your energy, but everybody's energy. When the sun moves through a sign, we're all given an extra dose of feeling what that sign means. Whether you pay attention to astrology or not, it's happening, but being aware of it really benefits you. If you remain unaware or don't believe in astrology, you might be feeling off and wonder what's wrong with you. But when you realize what might actually be happening, which is that the sun is in a sign giving you a certain type of energy, you know that one, there's an end in sight, because you can look at when the sun is going to change signs next. And once that happens, that energy is going to switch. And two, you can also use that extra energy to your advantage. So this is the third year in a row that I've become very aware of the Gemini energy. I'm a Gemini and I have a lot of planets in Gemini in my chart, and so this is a very natural sign for me. However, I've also had too much Gemini, which makes me a little flaky and I'm unable to focus on anything. So while I've really worked hard on that to become better, once Gemini season comes around, I feel it so strongly. It brings me back to a place where I used to be and where I thought I'd moved beyond. While it's annoying, it also shows me where I can improve myself. I also went through a period of being uncomfortable with emotions, like a lot of people. And so I would hate when the sun moved into Cancer, for example, like it will on June 20th, because it just brings up more emotions. I remember I would just be sitting there doing something I would typically do, like maybe I'm writing an email, and suddenly I would think about something that my mom said to me maybe 15 years ago and how it made me feel. That was so uncomfortable when emotions were not my thing. But now that I have the tools to work through it, it's a lot less jarring to be in a water sign. Each zodiac sign represents one of the elements, which are either water, air, earth, or fire. I learned astrology from Deborah Silverman, and her book, The Missing Element, explores each element very deeply. Our personalities are made up of a combination of different elements, which I look at as different energies. As I go through all of the elements, you're going to see different pieces of yourself. Think about which elements you relate to and which you might be lacking. Deborah talks a lot about our missing element because as we bring more of that missing element into our lives, we become more balanced. And life in general becomes easier as we express all of the elements in a more equal amount. So we'll start with water. The water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Some traits associated with somebody who has a lot of water are being emotional. You're really good at feeling and understanding emotions. You may be a more private person and not really want to be around a lot of people. And you could find yourself worrying and second-guessing everything. If you have too much water, you might start to show the shadow side of water, which can include trying to avoid reality, maybe with alcohol, drugs, or sex. You can find yourself really fear-ridden or almost a hypochondriac. So you start thinking about the worst case scenario in all scenarios. You may also have no boundaries, so you could be giving a lot to other people and wonder why you're not receiving anything back. If your missing element is water, you might find that you're not very emotional. You might lack empathy, not in a bad way, but as somebody becomes more emotional, you might take a step back rather than trying to understand what's going on. And you could also move quickly through emotional issues and wonder why others are still holding a grudge. The next element is air, and the air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Some traits associated with the air signs are people who are very talkative. They might have a lot of mental activity, and it's really easy to remember numbers or details about things. And if you have a lot of air, you might also overanalyze everything. If you have too much air, you might start showing the shadow side of air, which includes appearing flaky because you move from thing to thing so quickly. You might also want to do everything and end up either failing to complete projects or moving on to the next too quickly. I think of this for me as my little shiny object syndrome, like, ooh, look at this, ooh, look at that, now I'm going to go do that, now I'm going to go do this. And so you just never actually spend enough time doing one thing to go anywhere with it. You might also be seen as a know-it-all. If you're missing air, you might find it difficult to change directions and get stuck doing something even when the time has run out on that project. You might also be happier in your own world and not want to be around others as much. The next element is Earth, and the Earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Some traits of people with a lot of Earth are people who are very practical and grounded, they're very dependable, and they like to be result-oriented. And so they make a plan, they stick to it, and they want to reach their goal. If you have a lot of Earth, you might start to show the shadow side of Earth, which includes overindulging in all things. So people who are very earthy are really in the physical world, and so you could find that you want to start eating too much good food or spend too much money on a lot of luxury items. Too much Earth could also create a workaholic, or maybe you become a control freak, and you can also be extra judgmental of both yourself and other people. If your missing element is Earth, you might feel like you never have enough money or resources. You might find it difficult to take steps to complete a project. And I just wanted to point out that this is a little bit different from not enough air, because with Earth, you're not really taking any steps. While with air, you might make a plan and start it, you just move on to the next thing before you complete all the steps. So you're taking that action, but you're not seeing things through to completion. With a lack of Earth, you don't even start to plan that project. And so getting started becomes challenging. Then the last element is fire. The fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And traits of people with a lot of fire are people who have lots of energy, lots of enthusiasm. They can be really inspirational to other people. Someone with a lot of fire might say what they think and then think about it later, and so you get that foot and mouth syndrome, and they're also really the life of the party. If you have a lot of fire, you might start to show the shadow side, which includes embellishing or exaggerating. You might get very angry about different things and have outbursts. You could become a show-off, and you can also find yourself being a little bit impatient with others because they don't move as quickly as you. If you don't have a lot of fire, and this is your missing element, you might find that you don't really find the humor in life, or you could become depressed or turn to addictions. And people without a lot of fire also don't really have that desire to move your body, because exercising is really related to the fire element. And so if you don't have a lot of fire, you may not want to exercise, move your body, and you can end up being a little bit lazy. So now that we know these different elements, how do we use them? As the sun moves through each sign, we feel more of that energy. So right now, with the sun in Gemini, we're feeling more air. After the summer solstice on June 20th, the sun will move into Cancer, and we're going to feel more water. So if the sun is in a sign that you have a lot of, it can start to feel a little bit overwhelming. You'll have even more of that energy, and you might start to show more of those shadow side traits that I was talking about. Maybe you're going to start wondering what's wrong with you and why can't you get it together? Maybe you're like me and you thought you moved past a certain part of your life where you were showing a lot of those shadow side traits. Or maybe the current sign is bringing up something a little bit uncomfortable for you. This can be really common with water specifically. So if you're not used to feeling your feelings, when the sun is in a water sign, you'll have more opportunities to work on that. Another possibility is that you might actually feel better when the sun is in a sign of your missing element. So if you don't have a lot of earth, for example, you might feel more grounded and you can start projects when the sun is in an earth sign. The sun is bringing more of that missing element energy into your life, which makes you more balanced. The whole point of thinking about this is to understand yourself better. If you know which element balances you, you'll feel a lot better when you have more of that energy. And so you can do things to actually bring that into balance. You can focus on that missing element and bring it more into balance. Or if you have too much of an element, which you notice because when the sun is in that sign, you start to show more of those shadow side traits.
then it can actually be balancing to do some activities related to that element. So if you're overthinking everything, for example, journaling can really help bring that into balance, because journaling is an activity that balances air. I actually have a quiz that you can do that will tell you what your dominant element is, and you'll receive a PDF with different activities for each element. So there's like 5 different ideas for each element of things that you can do to bring those in balance. So you can focus on your missing element, whatever you have the most of, to try to bring that into balance, or you could even follow which element the sun is currently in to help balance that extra energy. And a link to that quiz is in the show notes. So this whole episode, we've been talking about the sign that the sun is in, but maybe you heard that episode a while back about the sun moving through the houses in your chart, and maybe you're wondering what's the difference. So the sign and the element are the energy that we're all feeling as a collective, but the house where the sun is independent of you, and it shows which area of your life is being activated. So we can combine those two to see which area of your life is being activated by the house, whether that's your relationship, career, family, yourself, your finances, anything. And then what is the energy going on in the background? The sign gives you that answer. Based on our rising sign, we all have a different combination of house and sign. So for example, Gemini risings will have similar experiences of the same energy and area of life that is being activated based on where the sun is. However, it's all personalized to us and based on our chart, but you can pay attention to both to see how it works for you. So then I'm curious, which element do you feel describes you best? And when the sun is in those element signs, how do you feel? What about when the sun is in your missing element? Do you feel more balanced? Being aware of these small energetic changes can help you feel a little less crazy sometimes, and it can help you plan when you're going to be most likely to get things done. If there's 3 months of the year that are most productive for you, you can use that to your advantage.
If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe so you can be notified when new episodes are released. And if you know of anybody else who might enjoy this content, I'd really appreciate you sharing the Flow into Health podcast with them. If you can't think of anyone else to share the podcast with, a 5-star review really helps others find the podcast. Thanks for listening today. I am so grateful to the podcast listeners, and I want to continue creating content that you want to hear. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them, and maybe an upcoming episode will be recorded with you in mind. See you next time.